Have you ever walked through an old European city center and felt something you can never quite feel in modern suburbs? That sense of place, that ineffable beauty in every carved stone detail, every wrought iron balcony, every carefully proportioned window. Now think about the last apartment complex built in your neighborhood. Chances are it's a beige box with the architectural personality of a shipping container. This isn't an accident. This isn't about taste or modern aesthetics. This is about cold, hard economics. And today, we're going to follow the money to understand why beauty itself has been priced out of existence. By the end of this video, you'll understand why a developer in 1890 could afford to add carved limestone flourishes to a middle-class apartment building, while a developer today can barely justify paint colors beyond gray. The answer lies in something economists call Baumol's cost disease, combined with the relentless mathematics of modern real estate finance. And once you see it, you'll never look at buildings the same way again. Let me tell you about the most expensive thing in modern construction, and it's not what you think. Let's start with a thought experiment. Imagine two buildings, both built for middle-class residents, both designed to maximize profit for their developers. The first was built in 1885 in Vienna. The second was built in 2025 in a mid-sized American city. The 1885 building has ornate stonework around every window. The entrance features carved caryatids supporting an elaborate cornice. Each balcony has custom ironwork in flowing Art Nouveau patterns. The facade incorporates 3 types of stone, creating visual rhythm through texture and color. The roof features decorative dormers and a carefully detailed parapet. This wasn't a palace, it was a standard middle-class residential building. The 2025 building is a 5/1, 5 stories of wood frame construction over a concrete podium. The exterior is fiber cement panels in 2 shades of gray. The windows are standard vinyl units, identical except for size. The only decorative element is a change in panel color at the 3rd floor. There are no balconies, just Juliet balconies that are essentially windows with railings. The roofline is flat and featureless. Here's the question that unlocks everything. Why could the 1885 developer afford beauty when the 2025 developer cannot? After all, we're far wealthier now. We have better technology. We can manufacture complex components at scale. By every measure of productivity and wealth, beauty should be cheaper today than it was 140 years ago. But it's not. And understanding why requires us to dismantle the entire economics of construction, piece by piece. In 1885, a stone carver might spend 2 weeks creating the ornamental details around a single window. That same stone carver was paid perhaps 3 to 5 times what a factory worker earned, a premium for skilled craftsmanship, but not an astronomical one. The total labor cost for all the ornamental stonework on a 40-unit building might represent 8 to 12% of total construction costs. Today, a stone carver with equivalent skills would need to earn a wage that reflects modern living standards, let's say $75,000 annually, or about $40 per hour, including benefits. That 2 weeks of work now costs $3,200 per window. For 40 units with an average of 6 decorated openings each, you're looking at $768,000 just for window ornamentation before material costs. But here's where it gets interesting. That $768,000 figure would be comparable if everything else had inflated at the same rate. It hasn't. The factory worker's wage has increased dramatically, but so has their productivity. A modern factory worker using CNC machines and automated systems produces 20 to 30 times more output per hour than their 1885 counterpart. The stone carver, using fundamentally the same techniques, produces roughly the same output per hour. Maybe they have better chisels and pneumatic tools, improving productivity by 30 to 40%, but not by 20x. This is Baumol's cost disease in action, named after economist William Baumol, who identified this phenomenon in the 1960s. In sectors where productivity can grow dramatically, manufacturing, agriculture, digital services, wages rise but unit costs fall or stay stable because each worker produces so much more. In sectors where productivity grows slowly or not at all, live music performance, education, handcraft, wages must still rise to compete for workers, but unit costs skyrocket because output per worker remains constant. The stone carver of 2025 needs to earn modern wages to afford housing, healthcare, and education that reflect modern productivity gains in other sectors. But they're still carving stone by hand, producing roughly what a stone carver produced in 1885. The result? Ornamental stonework that once cost 8 to 12% of a building now costs 40 to 60%, making it economically impossible for all but the most luxury developments. But labor cost inflation is only part of the story. The more fundamental shift happened in how real estate development is financed and evaluated. And this shift transformed not just what gets built, but how developers think about every single design decision. In 1885, most buildings were financed by individuals or small partnerships using personal wealth and local bank loans. The developer might be the building's eventual landlord. Financial analysis was relatively simple. Estimate construction costs, estimate rental income, subtract the first from the second, and see if the returns justify the investment. In this model, beauty had tangible value. An ornate facade attracted higher quality tenants who paid more reliably. Decorative details signaled permanence and quality. Beauty contributed to the neighborhood's prestige, which protected property values. The developer, planning to own and operate the building for decades, had incentive to invest in features that would maintain appeal over time. Today's development finance is radically different. Most projects involve multiple layers of capital: a developer's equity, construction loans, mezzanine financing, and increasingly, institutional investment partners. Each stakeholder has specific return requirements, risk tolerances, and exit timelines. The modern development pro forma doesn't ask, will this be a good building? It asks, does this project achieve the required internal rate of return given our weighted average cost of capital and risk-adjusted hurdle rate? Let me show you what this means in practice. A typical modern development might target an IRR of 18 to 22% for equity investors. This isn't greed, it reflects the risk premium demanded for illiquid real estate investments compared to alternatives like REITs or bonds. To achieve this IRR, every decision gets run through a financial model that calculates its impact on net present value. Should we add limestone detailing around the entrance? Let's calculate. Additional cost of $85,000, increasing total project cost from $12.4 million to $12.485 million. Does this allow us to charge higher rents? Market analysis suggests perhaps a 1.5% premium on ground floor units, about $180 per month across 4 units, or $8,640 annually. Capitalized at a 5.5% cap rate, that's $157,091 in additional property value. Sounds good, right? But wait, that $157,091 is future value at stabilization in year 3. Discounted back to today at our 20% hurdle rate, the present value is $90,799. Our net present value gain is $90,799 minus $85,000, just $5,799.
A positive return, but barely worth the execution risk and complexity. Now compare that to the alternative, adding another 450 square feet of rentable space by reducing the entrance setback and shrinking the lobby. Construction cost, $95,000. Annual rent, at $2.80 per square foot, $15,120. Capitalized value, $274,909. Present value, $158,991. Net present value gain, $63,991. The choice is obvious. The spreadsheet doesn't lie. Every dollar spent on beauty must compete against dollars that could generate rentable square footage, and rentable square footage almost always wins.
This brings us to perhaps the single most important factor in the disappearance of architectural beauty, the mathematical optimization of buildable space. And to understand this, we need to talk about floor area ratio. FAR is the ratio of total building floor area to the area of the land parcel. If you own a 10,000 square foot lot and the zoning allows an FAR of 3.0, you can build 30,000 square feet of floor area, spread across multiple stories, with setbacks and limits as specified by code. Here's what most people don't understand. In valuable urban locations, FAR is almost always the binding constraint. The land can physically support a larger building, but zoning caps how much floor area you can create. This means every square foot of allowed building area is precious, and every square foot not used for rentable space represents lost revenue. Let's use a concrete example. You own a parcel in a growing urban neighborhood. The land cost $4.2 million. Zoning allows 65,000 square feet of building area. Market rents are $2.95 per square foot monthly. Construction costs are $285 per square foot. In the baseline scenario, you design a straightforward building that maximizes rentable space. 91% of gross building area is rentable. That's 59,150 square feet of rentable area, generating $2,093,485 in annual gross rent. After operating expenses at 42%, you have $1,124,221 in net operating income. At a 5.25% cap rate, the property is worth $23,127,638. Subtract construction costs of $18,525,000 and land cost of $4,200,000, and you have a profit of $402,638, an 8.7% return on cost. Now, let's say you want to add beauty. You create deeper setbacks for more elegant proportions. You add a colonnade at the ground floor. You incorporate a courtyard for natural light. These features reduce the rentable ratio to 84%, meaning 54,600 square feet of rentable space instead of 59,150. The math is brutal. Annual gross rent falls to $1,931,040. Net operating income drops to $1,120,003. Property value becomes $21,333,400. Your profit is now negative $1,391,600. You've turned a profitable project into one that loses nearly $1.4 million, all because you wanted some architectural grace. But wait, you argue, beautiful buildings command rent premiums. Let's say you're right. The beauty lets you charge 8% more than market rent. Now you're at $3.19 per square foot. Annual gross rent, $2,089,512.
Net operating income, $1,211,917. Property value, $23,084,133. Your profit is $359,133. You're back in the black, but you made $43,505 less than the ugly building. And that 8% rent premium is wildly optimistic. Most market studies show premiums of 2 to 3% for aesthetic features, nowhere near enough to offset the loss of rentable space. This is the tyranny of FAR. Every architectural gesture that reduces rentable space must overcome an enormous financial penalty. Setbacks, courtyards, varied roof lines, generous lobbies, colonnades, all are mathematically punished by the development pro forma.
You might think modern materials and construction technology would make beauty cheaper. After all, we can 3D print complex forms, use prefabrication for elaborate components, and simulate designs with perfect precision before building. Why hasn't this democratized architectural beauty? The answer reveals another dimension of the cost disease. Yes, we can manufacture complex components more easily than in 1885, but we've also created a construction industry with vastly higher overhead costs, regulatory complexity, and risk premiums. Consider precast concrete ornamentation. In theory, you can create detailed molds once and cast hundreds of decorative elements at relatively low marginal cost. A precast panel with decorative details might cost only 25 to 40% more than a plain panel. The mold is expensive, but you amortize that cost across many pieces. But here's what happens in practice. The custom mold requires engineering drawings, structural calculations, and approval from the architect and structural engineer. That's 40 to 60 hours of professional time at $150 to $250 per hour. The precast manufacturer requires higher insurance coverage for custom work. Installation is more complex, requiring skilled labor and additional crane time. Each custom piece introduces potential for error, requiring quality control inspections. By the time you account for all the process costs, coordination overhead, and risk premiums, that 30% material cost becomes 180% total cost increase. And remember, every dollar spent here could instead add more rentable square feet. The same pattern applies to nearly every technology that should make beauty affordable. GFRC panels can replicate detailed stonework? Yes, but the engineering, waterproofing, and attachment systems cost more than the GFRC itself. Laser-cut metal screens create beautiful facades? True, but the structural support, flashing, and maintenance access requirements multiply the visible material cost by a factor of 4 to 6. Technology has made components cheaper, but it hasn't made the process cheaper. And in modern construction, the process is increasingly where the cost lives. Here's something you probably haven't considered. Insurance and liability have made beauty expensive in ways that would astonish architects from earlier eras. Every decorative element that projects from a building face is a potential liability. Every custom detail is a potential defect. Every aesthetic choice that deviates from standard practice is a potential claim. A developer building a standard 5/1 can get general liability insurance at 0.6 to 0.8% of construction cost. The design is proven, the systems are standard, the risk profile is well understood by insurers. But add custom elements, decorative cornices, cantilevered balconies with elaborate railings, facade articulation with multiple materials, and the insurance company sees increased risk. Why? Because custom elements fail in custom ways. A standard vinyl window has decades of performance data. Failure modes are known, installation procedures are standardized, and warranties are predictable. A custom aluminum window system with integrated decorative sunshades? The insurer has no actuarial data on long-term performance. They price this uncertainty as risk premium, typically 1.2 to 1.8% of the cost of custom elements. Let's translate this to real numbers. You're adding $1.5 million in custom facade elements to create a visually distinctive building. The insurance premium increase is $18,000 to $27,000 annually, $270,000 to $405,000 over the life of a 15-year construction defect insurance policy. That's 18 to 27% of your decorative budget consumed by insurance alone. But insurance is just one layer of risk cost. Custom elements require specialized subcontractors who charge premiums for one-off work. They require architect and engineer review time at hourly rates that can reach $250 to $350 per hour. They require material testing and mock-ups. They require detailed installation specifications and enhanced quality control. Every step away from standard practice multiplies coordination requirements and risk premiums. The result is a powerful economic incentive to build buildings that are aggressively normal, using the most standard details, the most common materials, the most proven systems. Beauty requires deviation from standards. Deviation from standards is expensive. Therefore, beauty is expensive. The syllogism is airtight. Building codes have become extraordinarily complex over the past 50 years, and this complexity has profound implications for architectural beauty. This isn't about good or bad regulation. It's about understanding how regulatory requirements interact with aesthetic choices to drive up costs. Consider a simple architectural gesture, varying the facade plane to create depth and shadow. In 1920, an architect could simply draw different setbacks and the builder would execute them. Today, every facade plane change creates code complications. Energy codes require continuous insulation. When the facade plane changes, you must detail how insulation maintains continuity without thermal bridging. That requires engineering calculations, thermal modeling, and specific flashing details. Air barrier continuity becomes complex. Every transition point needs carefully detailed connections to prevent air leakage. The architect must produce detailed sections showing exactly how the assembly works. Each unique condition requires separate details, separate calculations, and separate review by the building department. A facade with 6 different plane depths might require 30 to 40 unique detail drawings versus 6 to 8 for a flat facade. That's 80 to 120 additional hours of architectural time at $165 to $225 per hour. The same pattern repeats across every building system. Fire-rated assemblies with aesthetic features require testing and certification. Waterproofing complex geometries requires specialized engineering. Accessibility requirements constrain entrance designs. Energy codes limit window-to-wall ratios, making punched openings expensive. None of these requirements are unreasonable in isolation. We want buildings to be safe, energy efficient, and accessible. But collectively, they create a system where every architectural complexity triggers cascading compliance costs. The path of least resistance and lowest cost is simplicity bordering on monotony. Here's a subtlety that dramatically affects what gets built. The ownership structure of the completed building fundamentally changes the economics of beauty. And in the past 15 years, the rental model has become dominant, with profound implications for aesthetics. When a developer builds condos to sell, buyers directly evaluate aesthetic appeal. They're making an emotional purchase as much as a financial one. They'll pay premiums for distinctive architecture, quality materials, and beautiful details.
A well-designed building can command a 12 to 18% price premium over a generic building in the same location. This means beauty has a measurable ROI for condo developers. Spending $850,000 on distinctive architecture might increase sale prices by $1.9 million. Even after accounting for carrying costs and market risk, the math often works. But when a developer builds rentals to hold or sell to an institutional investor, the calculus changes completely. The building is valued based on net operating income and cap rates, not on how good it looks. An apartment renting for $2,400 a month generates the same NOI whether it's in a beautiful building or an ugly one, as long as the rent is the same. Can beautiful buildings command rent premiums? Sometimes, but they're small and hard to sustain. Most market studies show rent premiums of 2 to 4% for significantly better architecture, and even these premiums compress over time as tenants focus on practical factors like location, layout, and amenities. From an investor's perspective, two buildings with identical NOI should trade at nearly identical prices. The building that cost $18.2 million to build and the building that cost $19.3 million to build are worth the same if they both generate $1.15 million in NOI. The developer who spent extra on beauty has destroyed $1.1 million. This is why the shift toward rental-dominated construction has been devastating for architectural quality. In major U.S. cities, 75 to 85% of new multifamily construction is rental, up from 45 to 55% in 2005. This shift reflects demographic changes, financing structures, and tax policy, but its impact on beauty is undeniable. Rental economics optimize for operational efficiency, not for delight. Maintenance costs matter more than aesthetics. Standard components that can be easily replaced beat custom elements that might need expensive repairs. The result is a powerful economic force pulling architecture toward the generic, the replaceable, the forgettable. Here's one of the most frustrating aspects of the beauty problem. The benefits of architectural quality are largely externalized, while the costs are entirely internalized. This market failure creates systematic underinvestment in urban beauty. When you build a beautiful building, you bear 100% of the cost, but the benefits are distributed across everyone who sees the building. Your beautiful facade improves the street experience for thousands of pedestrians. It enhances property values for neighboring buildings. It creates positive spillovers for the entire district. But you can't capture any of these benefits in your rent or sale price. Economists call this a positive externality, when an action creates benefits for others that aren't reflected in market prices. Positive externalities lead to underproduction because rational actors won't voluntarily provide benefits they can't capture value from. Let's quantify this. A beautiful building in a visible location might be viewed by 5,000 people daily. If each person experiences just 2 cents worth of aesthetic value per day, that's $100 daily, worth $36,500 annually in total social benefit. Capitalized over 50 years at a 4% discount rate, the present value of this collective aesthetic benefit is $790,194. But the developer who spent $650,000 creating that beauty captures essentially none of this value. Maybe they can charge 2.5% higher rents, worth perhaps $90,000 in capitalized value. The remaining $700,000 in value is pure gift to society, which no rational profit-maximizing developer will provide. This is a fundamental market failure. The socially optimal level of beauty investment is far higher than the privately optimal level. But in the absence of mechanisms to internalize the externality, subsidies, tax incentives, regulatory requirements, or collective action, we'll get systematic underinvestment in urban aesthetics. Historic preservation does this accidentally. By preventing demolition of beautiful old buildings, we capture externality value that the original builder couldn't monetize. But we have no equivalent mechanism for incentivizing new beauty. We've created a system that preserves past beauty while making new beauty economically irrational.
There's another layer to this story that's harder to quantify, but equally important: the collapse of shared aesthetic literacy. When evaluating whether beauty is worth it, developers and lenders rely on market research. And market research increasingly suggests that people don't value architectural quality enough to pay for it. But is this true taste preference or learned indifference? Consider that for 60 years we've been building environments almost entirely devoid of architectural richness. Multiple generations have grown up surrounded primarily by utilitarian architecture. They've never experienced neighborhoods where every building, even modest ones, displays craft and care. They don't know what they're missing because they've rarely encountered it. Aesthetic appreciation requires education, not formal classroom learning, but exposure and experience. You learn to value ornamental details by seeing them, living with them, understanding how they create visual rhythm and human scale. When this learning environment disappears, aesthetic literacy atrophies. Market research asking people to pay premiums for architectural quality is asking them to value something most have never experienced. It's like asking people who've only eaten processed food whether they'd pay extra for fresh ingredients. Many would say no because they don't know the difference. This creates a vicious cycle. Developers point to market research showing people won't pay for beauty, so they don't build it. People never experience beauty, so they don't learn to value it. Market research continues showing minimal willingness to pay. The cycle repeats, each iteration further eroding aesthetic culture. Breaking this cycle requires collective action, regulatory requirements, public investment, or coordinated developer initiatives that rebuild aesthetic literacy by creating enough beautiful buildings that people rediscover what they're missing. But individual developers face a prisoner's dilemma. Investing in beauty while others don't means bearing costs without being able to capture the market-wide benefits of restored aesthetic culture. We haven't yet fully addressed perhaps the most fundamental constraint: the near extinction of skilled craft labor in construction. This isn't just about cost, it's about capability. Many of the traditional crafts that created architectural beauty are barely practiced anymore, making beauty expensive not just because of Baumol's cost disease, but because of simple scarcity. In 1925, major American cities had dozens of stonework companies, hundreds of ornamental ironworkers, and thousands of skilled carpenters capable of complex millwork. These crafts supported each other. Apprentices learned from masters, competition kept prices reasonable, and supply chains existed for specialized materials. Today, a developer seeking ornamental stonework for a facade might find 3 companies in the entire metro area willing to bid the work. Ornamental plaster? Maybe 1 company, often requiring workers to travel from other states. Custom millwork beyond basic trim? A handful of shops with months-long lead times. This scarcity has several effects. First, prices reflect monopoly or oligopoly premiums. With few suppliers, pricing power shifts dramatically. Second, quality becomes unreliable. Contractors taking on unfamiliar work make expensive mistakes. Third, schedules become uncertain. Specialized trades create bottlenecks that delay entire projects. But most importantly, the loss of craft capacity means many traditional techniques simply aren't available at any price. The knowledge of how to execute certain details has been lost. The supply chains for particular materials have disappeared.
The collaborative relationships between trades that enabled complex work no longer exist. This creates a path dependency problem. Beautiful architecture relied on an ecosystem of skilled trades, material suppliers, and accumulated knowledge. As that ecosystem atrophied, creating beauty became harder, making it more expensive, which reduced demand further, causing more atrophy. We're now multiple generations into this cycle, and reconstruction would require coordinated investment across the entire system, something no individual developer can accomplish. Let's return to where we started, the fundamental paradox that we're far wealthier than our ancestors, yet less able to afford beauty. This seems contradictory, but it perfectly illustrates how economic growth doesn't uniformly make everything more affordable. Real GDP per capita in the United States is roughly 6 times higher than in 1885. We have technologies that would seem like magic to 19th century builders. We've solved countless technical problems, yet a middle-class apartment building today has a tiny fraction of the architectural quality of a middle-class building from 140 years ago. The resolution of this paradox is that our wealth growth hasn't been uniform across sectors. We've become dramatically more productive at making manufactured goods, agricultural products, and digital services. We've become barely more productive at delivering services that require human time and skill, education, healthcare, live performance, and craft labor.
As the productive sectors grow wealthier, wages rise across the economy. The stone carver of 2025 can't accept 1885 wages because housing, food, and healthcare all reflect modern productivity levels. But the stone carver still produces roughly the same output per hour. The result is that handcrafted elements become expensive relative to manufactured goods, not because we're poorer, but because we've gotten so much richer in other domains. This is compounded by the fact that land in desirable locations hasn't gotten cheaper, it's gotten vastly more expensive. When land costs $400 per square foot, every design choice is evaluated against the opportunity cost of not adding more floor area. The 1885 developer, working with land costs equivalent to perhaps $30 per square foot in modern dollars, faced much less pressure to maximize every inch. The combination of Baumol's cost disease in craft labor and escalating land costs creates a squeeze where beauty becomes a luxury good. Not because we lack wealth or technology, but because of how wealth and technology have evolved unevenly across the economy. This phenomenon isn't unique to the United States, it's happening globally, but with fascinating variations that reveal which factors matter most. Looking at international examples helps isolate the key variables. In much of Asia, new construction occurs at enormous scale, yet rarely produces architectural beauty comparable to historical buildings. Why? Labor costs are lower than in the West, so Baumol's cost disease is less severe. The constraint is primarily the FAR maximization problem, combined with the speed imperative. Developers building 40-story towers on compressed schedules can't afford the time for custom details, even when labor is relatively cheap. In some European cities, you still see new buildings with architectural ambition, but look carefully at the economics. These are often subject to design review requirements, subsidized by government programs, or built in areas where FAR restrictions are less binding. Even in Europe, purely private development increasingly resembles the generic boxes familiar in American cities. The Middle East offers an interesting counterexample. Gulf states building entire cities from scratch sometimes create elaborate architecture, but examine the financial structures. State-backed development with effectively infinite capital, using imported labor at very low cost, with no land cost constraints.
These aren't market-based economics, they're prestige projects where typical financial constraints don't apply. The global pattern confirms that architectural quality requires either exceptional circumstances or intervention to overcome market forces. Pure market dynamics consistently produce utilitarian buildings, regardless of location, culture, or overall wealth levels.
The obvious question is, could we change this? What would it take to make architectural quality economically viable again? The answer isn't simple because the problem is structural rather than incidental, but understanding the economics points toward potential interventions, each with its own trade-offs and feasibility challenges. First, the externality problem could be addressed through tax incentives or direct subsidies for architectural quality. If beautiful facades create $700,000 in externalized benefits, public policy could capture and redirect some of that value. Historic preservation tax credits do this retroactively. New construction credits could do it proactively. The challenge is determining what qualifies and avoiding subjective aesthetic judgments. Second, zoning could be reformed to reward beauty with additional FAR. Imagine a system where standard development gets 3.0 FAR, but meeting specific design criteria, facade articulation, quality materials, setback variation, earns bonuses up to 3.5 FAR. This would offset the rentable space penalty of architectural richness. The challenge is preventing gaming and ensuring bonuses go to genuine quality rather than superficial gestures. Third, we could reduce process costs through streamlined approval for pre-certified systems. If beautiful elements could be standardized and pre-approved, eliminating the custom engineering and review time, costs would drop dramatically. Think of this as creating a library of beautiful components that have already cleared technical hurdles. The challenge is maintaining genuine architectural creativity within standardized systems. Fourth, investment in craft education could rebuild the skilled labor ecosystem. Subsidized training programs, apprenticeship incentives, and guaranteed project pipelines could attract workers to traditional crafts. This is a long-term solution requiring sustained commitment and coordination across the construction industry. Fifth, a cultural shift in real estate valuation could change investor expectations. If lenders and buyers began valuing architectural quality in property assessment, even if it doesn't immediately boost NOI, that would change development incentives. This requires leadership from major institutional investors and perhaps regulatory guidance from entities like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. None of these solutions are easy, and all require coordinating many actors with different incentives. But understanding the economic mechanisms that killed beauty is the first step toward engineering its return. You might be thinking, why does this matter? So buildings are uglier than they used to be. Is that really a significant problem compared to housing affordability, climate change, or inequality? I'd argue that the disappearance of beauty from our built environment is more consequential than it appears, not because aesthetics should outweigh practical concerns, but because the same economic forces that made beauty unaffordable are making many human-scale urban qualities unaffordable. The rentable space maximization that eliminates decorative elements also eliminates public plazas, generous sidewalks, neighborhood gathering spaces, and human-proportioned streets. The standardization imperative that reduces buildings to commodity products does the same to entire neighborhoods. The short-term financial optimization that can't justify architectural quality also can't justify the patient urbanism that creates great cities. When every development decision flows through a pro forma that demands maximum IRR within 5 years, we systematically undervalue everything that creates long-term place value: durability, adaptability, beauty, and community.
We're building environments optimized for financial extraction rather than human flourishing, and the results are increasingly obvious in decreased social cohesion, mental health challenges, and disconnection from place. The disappearance of architectural beauty is the visible symptom of a deeper condition: the inability of pure market economics to create environments worth caring about. Understanding this doesn't mean rejecting markets or capitalism. It means recognizing where they need guidance to serve human purposes rather than purely financial ones. The conclusion is inescapable. Beauty has been priced out not through malice or bad taste, but through the inexorable logic of financial optimization. But here's the final thought I want to leave you with. The fact that beauty is economically irrational doesn't make it any less essential. Economics is a tool for understanding incentives and constraints, not a philosophy for determining what matters. Our 19th century ancestors didn't have sophisticated financial models or computerized pro formas. They built beautiful buildings partly because craft traditions were strong, labor structures were different, and aesthetic culture was robust. But they also built beauty because they believed buildings should be worth looking at, should enhance public space, should express civic pride and human creativity. Somewhere along the way, we've allowed financial logic to completely dominate built environment decisions. We've accepted that if something doesn't show up positively in an NPV calculation, it shouldn't be built. We've let the spreadsheet become not just a tool, but the arbiter of value itself. Reclaiming beauty and the human-centered urbanism it represents requires pushing back against this hegemony. It requires asserting that financial optimization isn't the only legitimate measure of worth. It requires collective action to reshape the economic structures that currently make beauty unaffordable. The question isn't whether we can afford beauty, it's whether we can afford to keep building environments that treat it as unaffordable. Because the real cost disease isn't in labor or materials, it's in the impoverishment of our built environment and the message it sends about what we value. Thank you for watching Paper Reality. If this video changed how you see the buildings around you, share it with someone who cares about cities, architecture, or how economics shapes the world we inhabit. And let me know in the comments, what's the most beautiful building in your city? And what do you think it costs to make it that way?